Alright, we're going to take a closer look at the game Lee Moves North. And we're going to do a play-by-play of the 1862 Second Manassas Antietam campaign. I already did a general overview of the game, one of my favorite Civil War games actually, and this is going to be a play-by-play. I'm kind of new at this, so we'll just see where it goes. Now, in my introductory video to the game, I mentioned that one of the game's strong points is the hidden intelligence aspect of the game, and I can't emphasize that enough. That's a really important aspect of this game. Now, since we're going to be doing this as a solitaire game, it's going to be almost impossible to recreate a two-player game with the hidden intelligence. So I've decided to do the game from a point of view, and we'll take the point of view from the Confederates. So I've mixed the Union units under Pope here. Each one of these counters is either a corps or a dummy, and there's one cavalry unit in there. And as I do the video, we'll expose the Confederates so we can see what they're doing. And we won't know what the Union forces are until they're successfully probed. Again, that's one of the highlights of the game. Now, the game historically begins on, August 17th, about the time of the Battle of Cedar Mountain, which is just over here. That's Cedar Mountain. And Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, 9 divisions, sets up within 3 hexes of Gordonsville. And I've set them upside down here. Pope's army starts within 2 hexes of Brandy Station, and they're set up here. And at this moment, since I've mixed them up, I myself don't know which are real units and which are dummies. Over here to the east is a corps under Burnside at Fredericksburg. We know that that's a Union corps. And of course, up here we've got the defenses of Washington and the town of Alexandria. You can see Pope's rail line back to Washington, his base of supplies. Now, generally in this campaign, what Lee's trying to do is to defeat Pope's forces before McClellan's army, withdrawing from the peninsula, can land here at Aquia Creek and Alexandria and reinforce Pope. So really this is what Lee is trying to achieve: defeat Pope before McClellan's forces can come up. There's also more points available for Lee in the valley, the Shenandoah Valley, if he occupies the towns of Port Republic, Newmarket, Strasburg, Front Royal, and Winchester. There's also points if he captures Harper's Ferry, that's up here, that's defended by a Union corps. And there's a gold mine of points if Lee can actually invade the north and snap some of these rail lines connecting the board to the west. But that's all in the far-off future. I'm not sure if Lee's army is capable of doing that in the 1862 campaign. So we'll start the game. The Confederates do move first, and as we move along, I'll try to explain some of the rules and try to show you just how great a game this really is. I call the game simple elegance, because with very simple rules, he's really showed how armies moved and fought in the Civil War. So let's begin with the Confederate turn. Okay, we'll begin with the cavalry brigade here, and it's going to do a reconnaissance of Pope's right flank. And each space costs 1 movement point, and I'll show you how the counters move. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it costs 2 movement points to enter his own control, for a total of 7 movement points. Now the cavalry brigade has entered the zone of control of enemy units. It can now do a cavalry probe. It does this by rolling a die. So we'll try to probe that square there, or hex. Roll the dice. We roll a 4, and if we check the cavalry probe table, that's a successful probe. So we take the counter, flip it up. Aha! And we revealed a real Union unit. Now, when you reveal a Union unit, the cavalry can move no further, but it can still probe. So it will now probe that space. Rolls a die, gets a 2. That's also a successful probe. We flip the counter, and we've got the Union First Corps, which is a 16. That's formidable. So, what can the Confederates do next? Well, let's probe Pope's left flank. Okay, the cavalry brigade here pays 2 movement points to cross the major river, the Rapidan. That's 2. Another one to enter the square, 3. And 2 more for entering the zone of control, for 5. So 5 movement points to move there. He now commences a probe against that unit and rolls the die. He rolls a 2, which is a successful probe. We flip the unit, and lo and behold, we have a dummy unit. Now if you find a dummy unit, you're allowed to keep moving. So we spent what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 2 movement points left, but we don't have enough to enter here and do any more probing. So effectively this cavalry brigade's move is over. Alright, over here we've got a cavalry brigade that starts adjacent to these enemy units. Let's do a probe of this unit here. Roll a die. Rolls 3. It's also a successful probe. We flip the unit up, and that's another dummy unit. So this cavalry unit is actually allowed to keep moving. But since he's in the zone of control of a unit he wants to probe anyway, he'll stay where he is and probe that unit. He rolls the die. Rolls a 2, which is a successful probe. We flip this unit up, and that also happens to be a dummy. Interesting. Alright, so he hasn't expended any movement points, so he can keep on moving. Well, let's have him move up here. 1, 2, 3 to enter his zone of control. And he probes this unit here. Rolls a die. Rolls a 2. That's a successful probe. Flips the unit, and that's a real unit. So his movement and turn is over. So the Confederates have moved all 3 of their cavalry brigades, and they revealed just about all of Pope's army, because we know that the Union only has 3 dummies. We've exposed 3 of them, so we do know that that's a real corps. So now Lee, Jackson, Longstreet can proceed to move their infantry, and we'll do so now. Well, what can Lee do? Well, I don't see too much point engaging Pope's corps here between the Rapidan and Rappahannock. There isn't a lot of room to maneuver. Plus, Pope does have another corps here to the east, which can eventually reinforce. So I think Lee's best move is to move around Pope's flank as he did historically, and try to get Pope away from that corps at Fredericksburg. So let's move the infantry and see where it goes. So we've got a division here. Yeah, that's a real division. Don't forget the Confederates have dummy units too, which they can use for messing up the Union move. But we'll get to that in a minute. Now, cavalry units face up do not have zones of control. So this unit, this division, will go straight 6 squares, or hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, moving into the valley. Alright, and this unit, which is also a division, will do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've got Jackson. I'll move the leaders last, and I'll explain later why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're crossing a major river there, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, there's no zones of control. That is a real division. And this unit, we know that's a dummy. Of course, the Union doesn't know that. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, dummies can be used to almost as screening forces, because they have to be identified. So until identified, dummies act just like real units. And a division here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, that is a division. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'll have to explain the stacking and unstacking rules. When you stack with a unit, you have to pay 1 movement point, and when you unstack, you have to pay a movement point. That's to simulate the road congestion and just the logistics in moving an army. And I think it's a good rule. Again, simple elegance. So this division will go 1, one for the stream, 2, 3 for the square, 4, another one to stack, 5, another one to go there, 6, another one to stack. Whoops, no, it can't. Alright, so that's as far as it can go. And down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the reason you should get in the convention of moving your leaders last is because to have full command control for movement, your units must be on or adjacent to a leader unit. So Jackson will go 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can give command control to these guys later. Longstreet might be out of position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, can't get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can get there. So we'll have some Confederates out of command. That's not too good, but Pope's situation isn't much better. And Lee will come up here to put these guys in command for a future turn. So that's the end of the Confederate turn. What's generally happened? Well, they've exposed most of Pope's army, which is good. They've revealed the 3 dummies, and they know where Pope's army is, and they're screening pretty well and moving to the west. It'll be the Union turn next, and let's see what they can do. Okay, dummy counters are reintroduced to the game by placing them underneath real units. So I've replaced Pope's units, the dummies, and I'm going to show how they can be used to sort of mess up the enemy. Think of the dummy units as small detachments, faulty intelligence, anything that leads to the fog of war. Now Pope isn't in a very good position there along the Rappahannock and between the Rapidan. Plus he's got this corps over at Fredericksburg. He'd like to get back in command control. Now, units that are out of command control actually move by a die roll. So the Union player rolls the die and subtracts 1. That tells him how many movement points he has for that corps. And the rules state that you must state the path of movement for the corps before it rolls. So we want to get Fredericksburg, the corps at Fredericksburg as close to Pope as possible, but still be in a safe position. So I'll have him move directly north that way. We roll a die and see what the corps' movement is. He rolls a 4, really is a 3. Remember, we subtract 1. And he pays 2 movement points for the river and 1 for there. So good old Burnside doesn't move too far, keeping in character, I guess. Alright, so Burnside is on his way, and Pope is not in a very good position here. He still doesn't know what's in front of him, although he can be darn sure that most of these counters are real. The Confederates have 4 dummies in this game. So Pope decides to fall back behind the Rappahannock because he wants to wait until McClellan's army comes up here at Aquia Creek and Alexandria. So I think the safe move would be to fall back behind the Rappahannock. So he will do so. Alright, so the top unit, we don't even know what it is. Is it a dummy or a real unit? Anyway, you pay 1 to unstack, remember. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the river. And, to spread out the zones of control, I think he'll go 6. And why can they move full? Because they started adjacent to Pope. So he'll pay an unstacking penalty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this guy doesn't have to pay an unstacking penalty. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Spreading out a little bit. When you spread out, you can move faster because you're not paying the stacking and unstacking penalty. Alright, so he'll pay the unstacking penalty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, he'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now the cavalry. It's only 1 cavalry division. I think you better fall back too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Pope Well, Pope will fall back to here to put as many men in command as possible. I don't think there's any point in moving the 8th Corps up here at Harper's Ferry just yet. So that is the Union move. And on the turn record, 2 days have passed. So we're moving the turn record here to the August 19th, August 20th turn. And it will be back for the Confederates to move. Okay, I've got an overhead light that's giving me a bad glare here, so I'm going to edit this move and just explain what the Confederates are going to do and not show you the movement of every single individual unit. You can see the Confederates are now stretched out a little bit here to the west, and what I'm generally going to do is have Jackson's forces move into the valley and north, and Lee and Longstreet generally follow suit to the west. In other words, they're going out into the valley area, or at least to the Front Royal area. Now, Lee does get a number of points for capturing those towns in the valley, so I'll probably have at least one unit pass through these towns to gain possession. Might as well do it now early in the game while you've got the movement and the freedom to do so. So I'll move the Confederates, and then we'll pick up the action after that. Okay, I moved the Confederates generally to the west here, and it's no secret to us, since we're doing a video here, most of these are the dummy units, kind of screening Lee's right flank should Pope get aggressive, but that's not too likely. Now, they will be out of command, they won't move as efficiently, and that's a clue to the opponent. When your opponent leaves a lot of units out of command, you can probably be sure that they're dummies, but not always. So I've moved the Confederates, except for these 2 cavalry brigades here. Now, they could engage in a risky reconnaissance by crossing the Rappahannock here and moving around Pope's rear, but that would be a risky move. They could get trapped behind the Union lines, as Stuart almost did in the Gettysburg campaign. So that would be a little bit of a risky move. I think it's far safer to just have the cavalry move there to do some reconnaissance along the front here. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so we'll have the 2nd Cavalry Brigade go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they will reconnoiter that unit. They roll a die. They get a 4, which is successful, and that reveals another dummy unit. So they could keep moving, but they've expended, I think, all their points, didn't they? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. All right. So we've got this cavalry unit here. Zones of control do not extend across major rivers, so he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and reconnoiter that unit. Now, when you reconnoiter across a major river, you have to add 1 to the die. So you roll a 2, becomes a 3, successfully probes, finds another dummy unit. Confederate reconnaissance is doing very well. Okay, he's going to try to reconnoiter that unit. He rolls a 5, and that is finally unsuccessful, so his move is over. So that's the Confederate turn. And I've moved 1 cavalry brigade through the town of Port Republic there, and we've marked it with a little CSA marker to show that the Confederates were the last to pass through the town. You do that with the valley towns to remind you who last occupied them. So that's the Confederate turn. Let's see what the Union response would be. Okay, we're going to do the Union move, and I've replaced the dummies on top of these units to the west, because the Union player, like the Confederate, will use the dummy units to mess up the Confederate moves also. The dummies, I feel, are like legitimate sort of small units. And I like the way they perform in the game. They just kind of mess up the enemy, and he has to kind of probe them to see what they're all about. Now, we've got the Corps there at Harper's Ferry, which is pretty soon going to have to think about moving if Lee continues north. Now, Pope knows that next turn, 2 corps under Porter begin arriving down here at Acquia Creek or Alexandria, depending on the situation. So Pope knows he's going to be reinforced very soon. So He's pretty safe behind the Rappahannock there, but I think we'll have him fan out a little bit, protecting the roads here to Manassas Junction and Washington. He still only has 3 corps, and that's not enough to take on the likes of Jackson, Lee, and Longstreet. Now, we know that that's Jackson's corps. Most of these units are real. The real divisions are here, and those are the dummies. But let's move Pope's army, and I'll hold the video there and pick it up after Pope's army is moved. Actually, I think I'll probably show the move because it'll illustrate some movement points, movement rules at the same time. So we have 2 units stacked there, so as we know, you have to pay a stacking and unstacking cost. So here's some little tricks in the game you can learn. We know that that's a real corps, and there's a dummy. One little tactic is to have your dummy move first, since he's got to pay the unstacking cost, right? So he can go 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6, and block, or yeah, no, wait a minute. 5 actually, Union move 5, right? They'll go there and block this pass. Now this corps, which we know is a real one, but we're not supposed to know, can move, and he'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And you say, wait a minute, what about the zone of control cost? Remember, they don't extend across major rivers, so he doesn't have to pay that. So he kind of blocks Jackson nice, throws the zone of control there, and does protect the Rappahannock River. So Pope will leave him last. Again, move your dummy first, and he would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we have a solid line, and that's a dummy unit too. Well, we'll go 1, 2, 3. Move the cavalry last, and 1, 2. Better just go there, and just go there because we want to keep zones of control on the rail line. Now you might be wondering, why am I not using the 1-6 here to reconnoiter Confederate units? Well, right now the Union only has the 1 cavalry unit throughout the game, and it's as precious as gold. So they have to preserve that unit and use it when they really, really need it. Right now, Pope doesn't really need to know whether those are dummies or not, or real units. He has no intention of attacking them, and they're, in his mind, moving like dummy units, so they probably are. So he'll just move the cavalry sort of in the central position, keep it where it can be utilized if he has to. Now we still have Burnside's corps here. We've got to get him back in command control. So he's going to go up this way and try to join Pope. Remember, the Union rolls the die and subtracts 1. Rolls a 3, 3 becomes a 2, so he can go 2. Now there is forced marching, by the way, but I haven't illustrated any of that just yet, and when the units need to force march, I'll show what that's like. So that's the Union turn. You know, maybe not. Pope, gee, I don't like Pope's position. Don't like the Union Army position at all. That's the best corps he's got. Well, okay, we'll leave Pope there. The reason I'm concerned is because Pope, not being adjacent to these units, these guys are in command control and have to move by a die roll. That's not critical right now. They're still very much in a defensive position. But that could be a factor next turn. So we're going to advance the turn record for the Confederate turn, and this is the turn that 2 more corps for the Union will arrive at Acquia Creek or Alexandria. So let's take a look at the Confederate options. Okay, I want to have the cavalry brigade move into the valley here and garner these points for Lee. There's 25 points available for Lee in the valley, so he can't really ignore that. Now this cavalry brigade is out of command, which you may remember then is decided by a die roll. But I'm going to have him force march. And when you force march, you gain 2 movement points automatically. Then you have to roll for disruption. And I'll explain that in a moment. Let's see what he rolls. So this cavalry brigade, we have to designate the march. It's going to go to Newmarket. And we'll roll the die. He gets 4. You're adding 2 to that, so he's got 6 movement points. So he'll go 1 for streams, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he makes it to Newmarket. We'll mark it with a little CSA marker. And now we have to roll to see if he's disrupted. You roll a die, and he rolls a 5. If you roll a 1, 2, or 3, you're disrupted, so he's okay. What does disruption do? Well, not much right now. Disruption is mainly affects your combat ability. And since he's far from the front and not near any Union units, it's quite safe to force march when you're away from the enemy. But in this case, since he rolled a 5, he's not disrupted anyway. So that's the movement of that Confederate brigade cavalry. So we've got Jackson up here up at Front Royal. What can he do? Well, I see a couple of things he could do. I suppose you could even strike one of these columns. But combat isn't very nice in this game. I don't really like the combat results table much. And you don't gain a lot by fighting unless you've got really the odds to do something really well. I think the Confederates need more reconnaissance. Now my cavalry brigades, the Confederates are a little bit out of position here to reconnoiter up there. But let's see what they can do. So this cavalry brigade will have go... Oh, he's out of command. Right, forgot about that. Well, that means he's got to roll the die. And we have to give his intended movement. So, we intend that he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, not very good odds of that happening. But that's the intended move. We roll the die. And he rolls a 5, add 1. But why do we add 1? I'll have to look that up to see if cavalry adds 1 when they attempt to move out of control. I'll just check that rule now. Oh, there's a pleasant surprise. It says that face-up cavalry units do not need a leader for command control. So I need not have rolled for this unit at all. I got that mixed up with the, I think, the wilderness rules where the cavalry still have to roll a die. But in this game, face-up cavalry units are exempt from command control. So we can do that move I was describing. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they'll reconnoiter that unit there. Roll a die. Rolls a 6, which fails. And the rules say that when you fail a probe, that's the end of your turn. And that's unfortunate for the Confederates, because they need to know what those 2 units are. Well, that's important enough that they're going to try it again with this cavalry brigade. So they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. And we'll reconnoiter that unit again. They roll a 2. That's successful. They flip it, and that's a dummy unit, which means they can continue moving or probing. So they'll probe that unit. They roll a 2, which is good for the Confederates, and that reveals a real unit, the 11th Corps. So that unit is now over. So Jackson, Lee, Longstreet, they know we have a real corps there. They're still not sure what that one is. And they have no way of finding out because there's no cavalry nearby. The only way they could find out is to risk an attack on that unit. And that's sometimes viable because you might be darn sure it's a dummy and you can afford to make an attack. Lee knows that the cores on board are either a 9 or a 16, so if we're playing realistically, the Confederates would not know if that's a 9, a 16, or a dummy. Let's look at their options. You know, Jackson, being the bold fellow that he is, I think might risk it. He's got good concentration of divisions there, so he might risk attack on that corps. Let's go with that assumption. Alright, so they pay 1 to unstack. They pay 2. They don't pay if there's no control, remember, because friendly units negate zones in control. So they've paid 1, 2, 3 to enter, and 2 more, 5. So they've spent 5 movement points to enter that space. This unit does the same thing. 1 to unstack, 2, 3 to enter the square, and 1 to stack, because there's no zone of control anymore. Now this unit is alone, so he doesn't pay the unstacking penalty. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Note that I could have gone even into this square too, but I want to attack from just 1 square. And we have, that's a real division there, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got Jackson there with 4 divisions. Can this fellow get up? 1, 2, 3, 4... 1's 5. Yes, he can. Oh, that's a good old dummy. Alright. Is this one real? Yes, it is. 1, 2. Whoops, we got an impassable hex side there. Watch out for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. He can get up. So Jackson has concentrated the equivalent of a corps and more into that square. Jackson himself will now move into that space. So we're going to have our first attack, and that occurs after all movement. So I'll finish moving the rest of these Confederate units here, and we'll come back to the video. Okay, the Confederates continue to move north. Longstreet achieved a pretty good concentration here, and Lee is just over in the rear here in the Shenandoah Valley with one division, and that's a real division there. These, of course, are the 4 dummy units, which the Union has probably figured out are dummies, but it doesn't affect his move much. Not much you can do about it. So after the movement, we've got our first combat, or do we? So when you have a combat, of course, you reveal the units. You reveal it, and as it turns out, this is a dummy unit. So there wasn't a combat. Now I just have to check the rules to see if after finding a dummy, you can advance after combat. Let me just check that. Yes, the rules say that if the defender vacates the hex, which in this case he certainly did, since there was nobody there, you could advance. So I've got the decision whether to advance those divisions of Jackson forward. They certainly would embarrass Pope. Jackson would be very close to this line of communications back to Washington. And Jackson has a pretty good concentration there. It would take nearly Pope's whole army to throw him back. I think he's going to take the risk and advance into the space. Now we can look at the Union options. You can see Pope isn't in the best way. He'll be replacing his dummy units, but he will get those 2 new corps that arrive at either Aquia or Alexandria. And let me replace the dummies on the units here, and we'll look at their options. Okay, Pope has got some command control problems now because, as you can see, he's only stacked with those units and not adjacent to these units. So that means these units have to move by die roll. Now on the bright side, he's got the 2 new corps. I've decided to have them arrive at Alexandria. It would be better, along with Porter. So he'll have some command leadership soon. But Pope is having command problems. As the Confederates stretch him out, he has a hard time matching, putting all his units back in control. So a lot of his units are going to be moving by die roll this turn, which is not too good. That's pretty reflective, by the way, of the Second Manassas campaign. Pope's command control problems were pretty legion in that actual campaign, and that's reflected very well in this, like I said, simple but elegant system. So I'm going to proceed to move some of the Union units here, mainly by die roll, and see if we can block Jackson and get Pope's army in a better position closer to Manassas Junction as he tries to meet up with those corps that are coming from Alexandria. So let me move the Union troops there, and then we'll pick up the video after that.